Hello, I'm Brad Bird. 1997 is barely 3 months old, and already Mother Nature is wreaking havoc on much of the tri-state. Rivers, creeks, and streams from all over our region spilled out of their banks, forcing hundreds to flee their homes and causing damage in the millions.
I'm Shelley Kirk. The devastation brought on by the flood of '97 is immeasurable in the lives of many of our friends and neighbors. But the tragedy of this natural disaster has motivated many not affected by the flooding to come to the aid of those erased from their homes.
I'm Bill Riles, and that's really the purpose of this special videotape. The News 25 staff has logged hundreds of man-hours to document the flood of '97. We've told you the sad and the heartwarming. We've shown you the story on the water and in the air with Newscopter 25.
We decided to compile much of our coverage into a single presentation.
100% of the proceeds from your tape purchase goes to the American Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund.
So, how did so much of the tri-state get so flooded so quickly? Here's News 25 Chief Meteorologist Wayne Hart.
It all began during the late afternoon hours of Friday, February 28th, when an area of scattered strong thunderstorms moved northeastward out of Arkansas into the tri-state. Initially, it appeared that the storms would be forced northward by an advancing warm front moving out of the deep south, but that didn't happen. Rain-cooled air from Friday night's thunderstorms held the warmest air just to our south, forming a stationary front along the western Kentucky Parkway. As unusually moist air surged northward from the Gulf of Mexico Saturday, it interacted with this frontal boundary, leading to repeated thunderstorm development over the same general area in western Kentucky. The clusters of heavy rain and thunder tracked to the northeast towards Louisville in what is known as a training effect. The storms lined up like the boxcars of a long train, delivering heavy rains along one specific track. That track was just to the north of the western Kentucky and Bluegrass Parkways, where a record 10 to 12 inches of rain fell from late Friday afternoon into Sunday morning, when finally a cold front swept drier air back into the region. In the tri-state, the band of very heavy rain started near Madisonville and extended northeastward through Calhoun, Utica, Whitesville, and southern Hancock County, Kentucky. The rapid heavy rainfall led to a prolonged period of flash flooding across much of Kentucky, including Panther Creek in southern Davis County. And then, as the smaller creeks and streams finally began to fall, the major rivers began to rise, as all of that water tried to drain towards the Ohio River. This forced the Green River at Calhoun, Kentucky, up to 34.4 feet, leaving the town of Rumsey underwater for over 2 weeks. The Ohio River was next, rising to some of its highest levels in over 30 years, cresting in Tell City at 50.4 feet Saturday, March 8th. The crest then moved on to Evansville Monday, March 10th at 47.5 feet, and finally Old Shawneetown, Illinois, Wednesday, March 12th at 54.4 feet.
McLean County was among the first areas affected. On Saturday, March 1st, officials declared a state of emergency. Roads were closed and bridges washed out. We begin with News 25's Christine Dobbin.
Elaine's Beauty Shop in downtown Calhoun has had water problems before, but it's never been this severe.
The water was rising. It was raining real hard. I thought that it was hailing. I thought hail was hitting the awning in the back. And when I went and looked, it was the gravel where the back wall had caved in. The gravel was going under the building. And then the wall separated from the floor.
Employees blame it on a backed-up sewer system. The shop was evacuated this morning. Employees formed an assembly line to empty the contents of the shop. McLean County Judge Executive Larry Whitaker says the entire county is under a state of emergency until further notice. Calhoun is the largest drainage basin in the state, not only resulting in dangerously high waters, but mudslides on roads.
We generally expect backwater, floodwaters in the early spring. What we have seen in the last 24 hours, though, is the headwaters and the torrential rains that has just washed over the roadways and is cutting many of the roadways in two, and many of the bridges and culverts that we're having to close roads because we're losing some of those bridges and culverts.
You can see that where it was today, and it is going to be getting close to some residents, and if it continues to rain, some people will have to leave their home.
Sunday, March 2nd. This was the first day that weather allowed Newscopter 25 to take to the air. Residents in the town of Rumsey were ordered to evacuate. Also, Ohio County was under a water boil advisory. Some feared contamination. And in Muhlenberg County, a man drowned while trying to pull a raft through the floodwaters.
When Steve Biddle bought this rural Davis County home just 5 months ago, he never imagined floodwater would endanger his home.
Of course, we never suspected this to ever happen. You know, just take those precautions, but whether or not it happens, you never know.
Biddle says he could walk through his yard yesterday, but after the waters rose today, he sandbagged 10,000 pounds of sand around his house. What point would you leave?
When it starts coming in my house, that's when I'll probably leave. I hope it doesn't.
Biddle lives just 2 miles from Friendly Village, where disaster officials called for a volunteer evacuation today. They say water may not reach the town, but if residents don't leave, they could be completely trapped by water. Christine Dobbin, News 25, Davis County, Kentucky.
Along Highway 431 on the south side of Owensboro, the water has receded slightly. But just to the west in the small community of Stanley, the water is still rising. There's evidence that people are starting to get ready. Sandbagging has begun, and farm machinery is being moved to higher ground. But at the Settles home, they're trying something a little more elaborate. They're building an earthen dam around the entire house.
You know, we haven't had our house very long, I guess about 3 or 4 years, and we're afraid that it'll get the first floor. And we figure we'll spend the money here instead of having to replace our floor.
How did you decide to do something like this? I don't think most people would even try and do something this extreme.
Well, my husband farms, and so they've built levees before to keep the water off the crops, so it was his idea. We may not even need it, but if we do, it's here.
Davis County officials say the current forecast for the Green and Ohio rivers would put the water 8 feet over flood stage on Friday.
Everything you see right now is headwater, and that will run off if the Green River can take it and if the Ohio River can take it. Anything, let's say, west of 81, that's where the next impact will be. We're sandbagging as quick as we can. I've got 33 people sandbagging right now at the county garage.
But Nora says when people who have been forced out by the water finally get back into their homes, they're going to need even more assistance. Says county and state government will be standing by to get these people the help they need in cleaning up and putting their lives back together. Steve Gibson, News 25 in rural Davis County, Kentucky.
No tri-state community along a river has been exempt from flooding. Aside from the obvious loss of property, there are scores of health concerns. And just about everyone in the area compared the flood of '97 to the big one. Here's News 25, Steve Gibson.
For the first time in a long time, floodwaters have closed Highway 66 in Troy, Indiana. Residents say that hasn't occurred since flooding back in 1964. But it's still nothing compared to the flood that all other floods are compared to, the big one in 1937.
And you could see small homes come down, small buildings. It was a terrible sight. 37 was one of the highest floods we had here. I was 12 years old then.
Stein says in 1937 the floodwaters caught a lot of people off guard because they didn't have the ability to forecast river crest that they do today. The floodwaters were drawing a lot of attention from people, many of whom have never seen it this high. The marker on this wall indicates just how high the water got during the 37 flood.
We couldn't get anywhere. They had to fly the groceries in by helicopter, and then they'd bring them into the school, and then we'd go get them. And we didn't have any electricity and no water. We had to borrow water. We had cisterns then, though. And it was real bad.
1937, it got a little bit higher than this. And I believe we're going to get a little bit more yet, the way it looks. It's still coming pretty good.
The water's completely surrounded this house, but the people who live here say they're staying put. Electricity to the home has been shut off, but the residents say they have plenty of food, so at this time, they don't plan to leave. Steve Gibson, News 25 in Troy, Indiana.
Wading in this water is like gambling with your life. You have about a 50-50 chance of picking up disease and infection if you go in unprotected.
Grew up around the river and stuff. I don't give that stuff much thought.
A lot of that water is from backed up sewage.
That's kind of nasty. I don't like that.
Could possibly be looking at hepatitis, just about any type of disease that's transmitted by the oral fecal route, gastroenteritis, typhoid possibly, just as a whole gamut of disease that could possibly be spread.
How serious are these diseases?
Some of them can be life-threatening.
If you have to go into the flood water, you can arm yourself with rubber water protective clothing and boots, and even an updated vaccination.
The health department is offering tetanus shots for the rescue people free of charge. All they have to do is come in and get the shots if they're not up to date.
Sears suggests you get a tetanus diphtheria shot if it's been more than 10 years since your last one, if you have a flesh wound and it's been more than 5 years, or if you've never had at least 3 doses of the tetanus vaccine.
That, it's a sad statement on society when, someone's really down on their luck and someone goes back in and steals their possessions.
Words of frustration from a man forced from his home by flood and now unable to return to check on his property due to rough waters. Don Vondrak has no idea if his home has fallen victim to looters, but police say last night they caught 4 people, 2 on land, 2 on the water, they believe were up to no good.
The people that tried to do the escaping turned out all their lights and tried to paddle into shore quietly, and the sheriff's department was waiting for them and got them. It turns out that they had a police scanner. The arrest was made for carrying a concealed deadly weapon.
That's why officers are armed and ready for anything as they head back out onto the floodwaters, and they're out in force.
Motor vehicle enforcement has committed 14 officers to us. They're at the checkpoints. Water Patrol is back there. State Fish and Wildlife are back there with, of course, the power of arrest.
Osborne says police don't want evacuated property owners to panic. At this point, he says there's evidence of just 2 break-ins, but officers say that's too many.
The people that you see behind me that are going to their homes that are under 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 feet of water, they suffered enough. They don't need to have somebody come and break into their home and steal what they have left. I feel sorry for a person in that condition that doesn't have any morals and feels no shame in stealing. And I pray for people like that.
Adding insult to injury, police say so far all of the arrests have been locals. People familiar with the area, they say, preying on people from their own hometowns. Kathy Pribble, News 25 in Owensboro.
Highway 60 between Spotsville and Reed remains closed to most traffic as the floodwaters continue to rise. At the present rate, the water is forecast to go up another 8 to 10 inches by Friday, effectively cutting Reed off.
And there is no cars allowed on 60. They are turning cars back. The water over Route 61 places about 5 knots, and it's rising, so cars can get washed, not always, but they can get washed off the road.
Reed is one of 2 areas hardest hit so far by the flooding in Henderson County. The other is the community of Beals.
So we're going to get about 4 rings high on my garage door. If it does, it's going to be probably chest deep in my basement.
Many people are moving their belongings to higher ground, but for some it's already too late, and a number of people have had to be rescued by boat. Authorities say public safety is their major concern.
We want to get people out, and we want to get them out in daylight hours where we have the rescue personnel and we can see what's going on, because this water is very treacherous out here.
Authorities are also concerned about possible looting.
If we find people out just joyriding or riding around looking at homes and stuff, they're going to be cited. We're going to do whatever it takes to ensure that people's property is safe while they're out of their homes.
Watkins says if you plan to check on your flooded property by boat, you should first register with Disaster and Emergency Services so they know you're out there and when you will be back.
Steve Gibson, News 25 in Henderson.
Many people forced from their homes found refuge with friends and relatives, but for some, that simply wasn't an option. Shelters across the region provided warmth, a dry bed, and a hot meal. Here's News 25's Kathy Pribble.
Lunch at the Red Cross shelter today came courtesy of a local church.
Okay, the bread is in here and the chips.
It's food as close to home cooking as many of these folks may have for a while. James Dickens and his wife June live near Stanley, Kentucky. June was just a child when her family had to be rescued during the 1964 flood. James says they barely made it out on their own this time around.
Going out
I felt my whole truck just slide a little bit, and it was real scary. It was like being on ice. And anyway, we did make it out.
And so for now, home for the Dickens family is this room in the old Mercy Hospital building. But it's private, and the family has its own bathroom. Across the hall, Mike Kennedy and his extended family, they escaped the flood last night and say they feel lucky to have a bed to sleep on, even if it is just an Army-style cot.
It'd be better than a night on top of a roof or something like that. It could be a lot worse.
Not everyone who comes here needs a place to stay. Red Cross damage assessment teams are also working with families to make arrangements for flood relief. Donna Head's family is staying with relatives. She says she'll never live near a river or a creek again.
No, I'm sure I'm not going to go back. I don't want to go back, but no, I just don't want to go through this again.
Red Cross officials say people needing shelter can come here anytime, day or night. Those needing other assistance are asked to visit between 9 in the morning and 6 at night. Kathy Pribble, News 25 in Owensboro.
Kentucky Lieutenant Governor Steve Henry was back in Henderson County surveying the flood damage as the Commonwealth gets ready to request assistance from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. It's only been 48 hours since the Lieutenant Governor was last in the Beals and Reed areas. But in that short period of time, Henry says he can see just how much the water has gone up.
The cleanup's going to be very expensive. Infrastructure needs are going to be expensive. Projects are going to be expensive. Euro's estimates in this county are $60 to $65 million, and that's going to go up. And every day buildings are underwater, the expense and the damage goes up. And so I think when the water goes down, we'll have a true assessment of what's happened here.
Not only federal money for flood victims, but also their communities.
After the 37 flood, for instance, that's when you've seen all the levees and the dikes and the different things built around some of these communities, and those are the kind of dollars that would be becoming available to help in certain areas.
The water across Highway 60 went up about another foot overnight, further cutting off Reed. The only driveway in or out is on the railroad tracks. Bob and Ann Mitchell, whose home is surrounded, decided to come out this morning.
The telephones went off last night, so as long as we had a phone, see, we could call somebody. But when you don't have a telephone, then you're out of luck.
So it was time to go then?
It was time to go.
We don't have a boat or anything. We decided it's best to get out while we could. And water likes about maybe a foot being in the floors. So we thought, good time to get out while we could.
What do you think about the ride?
A little bit on the rough side. But we met the guy that owned his trailer, and he let the air out of the tar, and that helped it a whole lot.
The Mitchells are going to stay with a son who lives on higher ground. Steve Gibson, News 25 in rural Henderson County.
The water has now inched its way into Beals, covering mailboxes, doorsteps, and even spilling into homes. The U.S. Coast Guard joined the local volunteer fire department. Together, crews traveled over 35 miles today, encouraging residents to get out while they still can.
Coast Guard, is anybody in there? Well, what we're trying to do is we're just going from house to house here and trying to get people out, try to evacuate them out of here before the river comes up anymore, you know. Check to see if people need any assistance. Just, you know, they need help. We do recommend to try to get the people out before anything worse happens.
This flood has brought the town of Beals together, but it's been no picnic. The fire department says they've been evacuating all week, but know their work has only begun.
Even after the water goes down, water's gotten up into electrical boxes and whatever. I imagine, you know, there's going to be a lot of problems with that. Debris on the roads, we'll have to clear all that.
When the Francis family moved into their home 3 years ago, they never imagined their front deck would be used as a dock. But when water poured into their bedroom, they knew they should get out before it was too late.
We'll probably have a foot of water up. It'll probably be mud and water all up in the house. And hopefully my old cat will be on the table and he'll still be alive. I'm grateful as I can be that we've got good people like this to come to our rescue and help us.
The Coast Guard is also delivering groceries and medicine to those who are staying on their temporary island. But tonight the Francises say they're glad to be on dry ground. Christine Dobbin, News 25, Beals, Kentucky.
The human tragedy of the flood of '97 took an even darker side on March 9th. That's when a boating accident in floodwaters claimed 2 lives. 3 men from Stanley went into the water. Only one made it out alive. News 25's Donnelly Keith reports.
The 2 men still missing are now thought to have drowned. After hours of diving in search of the men, still no bodies, only this jacket has turned up. It's thought to belong to one of the victims involved in the tragic boating accident.
Approximately 1:30 this afternoon, there's 3 gentlemen, adult white males, and 2 black labs in a 16-foot canoe. They left the shore over on the other side of the water that you see behind us. One gentleman stood up in the canoe tipped over, dumping all the occupants in water that's less than 50 degrees. One occupant managed to get to shore and get help about 4 hours later.
Rescue efforts are called off for now as emergency officials fear for their own lives as well.
Well, it was going pretty well till the wind picked up and we got a lot of wake started rising and started endangering the rescue operation. We're going to presume as soon as the winds break down or we get back at it. We couldn't get to the location we needed to be at.
Difficult to see in the darkness, much of Stanley has been completely overpowered by flood waters. Emergency officials fear a combination of the massive flooding, the forceful current, and the frigid water temperatures makes it nearly impossible for the men to still be alive. Damalie Keith, News 25.
All over the tri-state, there were 2 very hot commodities in dealing with the floods: sandbags and volunteers. Here's News 25's Christine Dobbin.
Were right here by our sides the whole time to help us and pitch in. And if it wasn't for them, who knows what would have happened. Things could have been a lot worse.
The family started out with a few sandbags, and as the crest prediction rose, so did their wall, bringing the total to almost 2,000 sandbags.
They went and got bags, and we just started filling them. They had a semi that we filled them out of. As long as the bags holds, all that matters now, I hope, unless we get rain.
Earlier today in neighboring Vanderburgh County, similar sandbagging efforts, this time in the Pigeon Creek area, at the home of a sheriff deputy.
Pretty well come out anywhere from midnight to 2 o'clock and just work most of the day. And then I got some friends that'll come by and give me a break, take a nap. Had a lot of help.
But homes weren't the only thing threatened by the water. These horses fled to higher but not necessarily safer ground today as they were rescued on railroad tracks by the Humane Society.
We actually had to walk them down the tracks, and a lot of these animals have never been walked. They've never been in a trailer. They've never actually had any contact with people except for feeding them occasionally, I guess. So it was quite interesting.
The Humane Society did find a place for the horses to stay, and although residents are breathing a sigh of relief after today's crest, this flood is far from over. Residents must first wait until the water goes down, and then go back to their homes and try to put back the pieces. Christine Dobbin, News 25.
The view from 1,000 feet above Davis County best puts the '97 flood in perspective. Houses nearly swallowed by water. Farmland that now looks more like a river itself. Davis County Captain David Osborne rode along in Newscopter 25 to get a better look.
For all of us, the emergency personnel, it's just so much easier to get up in the air to assess the situation because you just get the total picture of where the water is and what's going on.
Osborne is most concerned about the Stanley and Maceo areas, both of which have parts already underwater. He's also worried about Highway 60, which is covered by flooding in several spots.
Once you get up in the air, it's unbelievable the amount of water that we've actually got. 431, the road has cleared itself, but still just the massive body of water that we've got out there. Folks are really getting antsy, wanting to get back into their homes. And that's starting to cause us a problem because we really don't want them out in the backwater.
You can see for yourself the damage caused nearly a week into the '97 flood. But with area rivers not expected to crest still for another couple of days, there's no real picture on how bad the damage will be. Mark Glover, News 25, high atop Davis County.
Sandbag was Inland Marina owner Ron Rieken has been boating around the marina ever since the flood began, checking on boats, moorings, fuel tanks, and electric wires. It's a job he is used to. But this time, the 47.5-foot river was the highest he has seen since he moved the marina off the river and into its protected inlet.
In '64, we just had a fuel dock and a very few slips out on the river, and of course they got to this stage and a few tenths higher. So when we built the marina, we decided to handle this kind of water and excavated this harbor and moved back in here, which you wouldn't want to be out there on the river, no.
The water did not get into Marina Point Restaurant, but it got close. It did not get into Lloyd's Marine Sales showroom, but it did get into some of the storage sheds there. And for this river veteran who has seen a lot of floods come and go, if a flood must come, he prefers it, like this one, to be early in the season.
It's just an inconvenience at this time. We'd like to see the high water come early, though, so maybe it'll get down when the boating season, it'll stay in pool.
Amen. Before the Mississippi flood gets down there.
Yeah, that's right.
And if they're looking for a good marker to remember this 1997 flood crest by, how about the payphone in the parking lot? The water got right up to the bottom of the phone before the crest passed. This is Hal Wolford on the river at Inland Marina.
FEMA Director James Lee Witt says it's devastating when the floodwater goes down and people realize that everything they've worked for is gone. Accompanied by Indiana Governor Frank O'Bannon, Witt toured areas of Rockport and Grandview in Spencer County, which have been hard hit by the flooding.
We just want you to know, and the President wants you to know, Governor, that we're here to help you and help your communities to recover as much as we can and do everything we can.
Let me compliment FEMA for responding to my request through President Clinton last Wednesday. On Thursday, we were declared a disaster area, and the first checks for temporary assistance for housing went out, I think, yesterday.
Currently, homeowners and businesses can apply for federal assistance over the phone.
And used to, you'd have to, every time we opened up a disaster, they'd go to an application center and sit there and fill out paper applications, you know, and wait in line. So we've streamlined this.
It says as a result, assistance checks can be in the hands of flood victims in 5 days, compared to up to a month the old way. Local disaster officials say it can help speed up the process to victims when people like Witt and the governor come to your town.
First of all, it lets me know that they care enough to be here and that they've got it, the support that we need, they've got it. I mean, they can say the word and we get it.
And if we don't all work as a partner and do our job well, then those individuals are the ones that's going to suffer who we're trying to help. And it's important we do it together.
Witt and O'Bannon were also scheduled to visit flooded areas of Clark and Dearborn counties. Steve Gibson, News 25 in Spencer County.
The human spirit can seem magical at times. Faced with the loss of home and property, many tri-staters made the best of a horrible situation. Our Hal Wolford has seen plenty of those hard times, and he's a master at finding a gem in the rough.
Well, we've all been looking at flood video like this for more than a week now. But Ron Mabry didn't have to go to the TV set to see it. His home near Hebersville is in the flood.
I'd say the water's about 1.5 feet deep in my mobile home right now.
The flood being in your living room prompted you to write the Great Flood of '97. I guess you're the first guy to come out with a song on this flood.
I was laying in bed the other night and the thought hit me, and I thought, well, I'd write a song for all the victims, and that's what I did.
It's like the sky just opened up. I thought it would never stop. Yeah, this one came in buckets instead of those old small drops. For 3 days and 3 nights, it was nothing but an old downpour. When it ended, my rain gauge, it read 10 inches or more. Yeah, the flood of '97, a lot of hell fell from heaven. I guess there's only so much that Ohio will hold. In the flood of '97, a lot of hell fell from heaven. It wasn't long before she overflowed. But I kept right on praying, but it didn't do a lot of good.
Mabry isn't sure when he can get back into his mobile home. He is staying with relatives for the time being, and he can remember the flood of '97 in song. That is, if he doesn't want to forget all about it. This is Hal Wolford on the back roads.
This huge pile of debris is what the flood left behind for members of the Deliverance Christian Center Church. Also in its wake, ruined floors, bowed walls, and so far, at least one snake.
The day before, we were picking up debris with our hands with the gloves, so we probably picked some up and didn't even know it.
What do you think about that?
Oh, I don't like them. but it has to be cleaned up.
Naturalist Joe Ford says this is probably what Charlene found, a non-poisonous garter snake. Easy to spot, he says, by the stripe running its entire length.
With the flood like it is, they're escaping the water as much as anything. They'll go anywhere. And of course, they do tend to be secretive. Any reptile would, they'll hide. And the bad part about it, say your carpeting is a little loose, they might get in under your carpeting and you pull it up and there's a nice little garter snake curled up.
Ford says other slithery suspects could be the larger chicken snake. Like a garter snake, it may bite, but that bite has no venom. Still, for snakeophobics like me, the key is getting rid of them.
Put out mothballs. Snakes can't stand mothballs. If you can stand the mothball odor, just scatter some mothballs, and the naphthalene permeates the air, and then the snake is flicking out his tongue as they do, and he just can't stand it.
As for the folks cleaning this church, perhaps the first snake they found will be the last. They and this 100-year-old building have been through enough.
I've been pastor for about 23 years, and this is one of the greatest trials that I've been through, but there's not a doubt in my mind we'll recover from this.
Kathy Pribble, News 25 in Davis County, Kentucky.
The Ohio River has dropped enough that cleanup operations have begun, and damage assessment is underway at the Newburgh-Loxon Dam. For the first time since it was built in the early 1970s, the structure was underwater. But sandbagging efforts by personnel kept the water out of the offices and control building. Workmen have begun washing away mud that covers most of the concrete surfaces. Next will be removing tons of debris, which has filled the 2 locking chambers.
We're about to get back in operation, and when it falls about 2 more feet, 2.5 more feet, then we'll be able to lock boats here. We haven't seen everything yet. Once it all gets out of the water, we'll know exactly how much damage we've got. But right now, I'm not anticipating a lot of damage. I think it's going to be pretty good shape.
Van Winkle says the Newburgh Dam was built to withstand a 25-year flood. At 50.4 feet, it got awful close.
This has been a learning experience. Yeah, we've got a large underground facility here. Underneath the concrete that we're on here, there's probably about 3,500 feet of tunnels under here, and we thought we were in good shape, and then we found out we were about to lose them, and got some more pumps online and clogged up some more holes. So we've still got a dry basement and a dry walkway underneath this thing.
The river is still open to barge traffic until the river drops about another 2 feet or so. Towboats are passing over the dam on the Kentucky side of the river. Van Winkle says the Coast Guard did close the river in sections last week, starting around Louisville and basically following the crest downstream. The river in the Newburgh area reopened late Tuesday afternoon. Steve Gibson, News 25 in Newburgh.
This was the scene south of Owensboro a week ago. 431 is now open and the water is beginning to recede. Today, many residents took their first look at what this March flood has left behind.
Moving out furniture that they've lost in the flood water, cleaning up the floors. They have hardwood floors all through their house. We don't even know if those are even going to be saved or not. She's lost quite a bit of appliances, that those are going to have to be replaced. Cabinets. I just can't begin to tell you how much.
Cleanup will take months as homeowners are cleaning everything out. Trash and ripped up carpet lies along this Pettit Street as residents are trying to salvage what's left in their homes.
Came up so fast. We set everything up. We thought high enough, about 3 foot normally. It would never come up that high, but it kept getting up higher and got everything just about in downstairs. But got my office and my garage, and we're getting there though. We're getting closer.
The Jennings live in the Pettit area, which was hit very quickly. Most of these homeowners had little time to get much of anything out.
It looks like you got it to the top of that pool. I know, yeah. He had refinished that. It was an old 1930s Stephenson. I didn't have any idea what to expect because I hadn't been out here except on the highway. And a lot of the things have already been taken out and thrown out. But I just wanted to see for myself how much it had done.
Tonight, the Jennings were able to move back home. They'll be spending their first night here since the floodwaters first came.
A bunch of my good friends come out and been helping me out. It's been a whole lot easier with them, I'll tell you that. It's been real nice of them.
Christine Dobbin, News 25, Davis County, Kentucky.
Vanderburgh County farmer Chris Wathen has about 1,200 acres underwater from flooding along the Ohio River. All he can do is watch and wait. Some farm experts say the floodwaters could cause severe erosion.
Old Man River has a way of moving things around under the surface of the water, and we don't know what we're going to get into until the levels go down. you'll see actual mounds of sand just move from one area to another. You'll see new sloughs. There's no telling what you'll see. The debris, we don't know what we're going to have there yet. We may get lucky, we may not have much at all. And on the other hand, we may be out there for weeks picking up debris.
No row crops have been damaged by the floodwaters, but Wathan, like many farmers, has had acres of winter wheat destroyed by flooding.
If it's growing, considering the warm weather that we've had, it's not going to survive underwater. It's gone. We're lucky we didn't have that much that we lost due to the high water. We took a little gamble and planted a little lower than we should have, and water did get it this year.
But even wheat that is not underwater could still suffer. Henderson County Extension Agent Mike Smith says the saturated soil can inhibit nutrient intake by the plants. Wathan, like many farmers, hopes there won't be a repeat of last year's cool and rainy planting season. It forced them to plant late, resulting in lower crop yields. Wathan notes that the current floods were not caused by the normal spring thaw, but instead by heavy rains upriver, which means the normal spring floods could still occur. Steve Gibson, News 25 in Vanderburgh County.
Among the disaster of the '97 flood also stands many success stories. A family in Davis County thought ahead and took drastic action. It wasn't exactly the Great Wall of China, but it was a wall 8 feet high, and it did the trick. News 25's Christine Dobbin has the story.
The Settles family is back home tonight. Their home safe, untouched, and most of all dry, but not without a lot of thought and effort.
I had an older gentleman that had worked for us years in years past, and he knew what the flood was of '64, and he told me he couldn't remember exactly how tall this ridge was, but he didn't think it was tall enough. So he said, I need to do something, so I got me an excavator and built me a wall.
12 hours later, Settles had a flood wall completely surrounding his house. He says the water crested a couple of feet from the top of the wall, but he still moved his family to higher ground.
I wasn't here to see it, so and he kept telling me everything was fine, so I trusted him, and so I didn't worry about it. And he kept the equipment here in case it did look like it was going to come over.
Marvin, Janie, and their 4 boys say they are very thankful and fortunate after seeing so many tri-state homes underwater. Settles says it will be much easier to redo his yard than his home, and he offers this advice to anyone who might experience a flood in the future.
If they have the time, I would say everybody will do it the next flood that comes around.
There have been many efforts throughout the tri-state to aid flood victims. The week of March 10th was a big week for News 25 and the American Red Cross. We broadcast live in Evansville, Henderson, and Owensboro. The Red Cross in each city set up phone banks and had volunteers on hand to take donations for flood relief. We helped raise more than $26,000 that week. And your purchase of this tape is benefiting your friends and neighbors. As you know, the cost of this tape is $12.
And every cent of that fee is going to the American Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund. We're proud to offer you this glimpse of a very difficult time in the lives of many tri-staters, and we're even happier to assist the American Red Cross in raising funds to help rebuild lost dreams. Thank you for your help.
We'll leave you now with this unique musical look at the flood of '97. It's unique because News 25 photographer Chris O'Neill composed and performed the music to which he edited this video.
Below in the mid-40s, showers will be developing tomorrow morning. Could even see a thunder shower in the afternoon.
The Ohio River at Evansville currently at 47.2 is still expected to crest on Tuesday.
It came up fast and there wasn't anything we could do.
Grateful as I can be that we've got good people like this to come to our rescue and help us. I just can't thank you enough.
sunshine with a few clouds tomorrow, but chilly. High in the mid-30s. Another cold one tomorrow night with partly cloudy conditions, a low around 20.